Hey y'all, Will here, otherwise Xelray, and today we're getting into a Once Human video about the patch notes that dropped for the patch this morning, July 18th, and the news that we've received about various gameplay elements over the last week and since launch in general. And this is coming from the devs themselves through dev notes and community managers about and explaining how things work in the game. And at the top of the patch notes, the first thing that we get is a brand new gameplay element. Let me read it out for you. Every night from 9 to 10 p.m., a Rosetta transport truck filled with sproutlets will appear on the highways of Red Sands. That's the final destination for most players. That's near the last town you get to that's populated. Metas near the truck will activate PvP to obtain the sproutlets either by ramming the truck with vehicles or picking them up. There will be no durability loss or gear drops in this mode, allowing players to embrace the exhilarating highway chase without any consequences. Enjoy this feature to your heart's content. This feature will be available in both PvP and PvE scenarios. And why is this nice? Well, the cargo shuffle event on PvE or PvP servers is quite a lot of fun. However, it does not announce itself, and it's hard to keep track of on the map. I don't know how many times I've looked in the map just to see cargo shuffle at 20% and no way for me to get there in time to get any rewards. And well, that is irritating, and I think this is to fix that issue. Now we have a guided time, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., and I'm going to assume this is at Pacific Standard Time. I could be wrong. If I am, I'll amend it in a pinned comment down below. But this allows us to really get a hefty sum of sproutlets so we can get that bike skin for 10,000 snowflakes or whatever the currency is called. This is a great addition to the game, and I hope it stays as a permanent feature and it allows the entire server to play together at least for an hour on something other than grinding on the PvE servers, and it's a little bit less stressful on the PvP servers as well. And now on to a more somber note. There was a feature I thought intended that allowed us to use the Artisan's Touch to repair the overworld weapons that we found in chests, and armor as well from the gear crates. Now, we can calibrate those armors and weapons, and we can even change the calibration attachments on those armors and weapons, but there's no way to repair those items. And if we can do everything in our power to use our currency to make those found weapons better, especially some legendary melee weapons that we cannot find anywhere else in the game, there's even a great military dagger that is a wonderful addition to the game, and I wish we could use that on a more common frequency if we wanted to. I would hope that the devs would look at this and see if there is a way for us to have a balance where maybe we can't calibrate and make the weapons we find in the world better, so we're never going to have a plus 10 calibration weapon. But if we wanted to, maybe we could repair it and be able to use it and see if we actually like it, to see if we want to spend Star Crumb on it in the shop instead of it being a random guess after we've already done some min-maxing testing and general research to make an educated guess at if we would like to purchase that item with Star Crumb. Or if we can't, how are we supposed to use it? Are those weapons supposed to be teasers for future seasons and passes later on that we might be able to achieve? Either way, if you have an opinion on that specific thing, leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to hear what's going on in your mind about it, and if you think it was a good change or a potentially poor change by the developers. Other changes that are mentionable and not just standard riff-raff patch notes, fixing this, fixing that, is that they disabled the feature that merges worlds. Servers will no longer merge in later states. What this was intended to is to keep players playing on primary worlds so that you would see more people playing as the season went on and the player count dwindled. However, what it also did is it removed your base from its location if someone else already had that location on the world that you merged into within your server. This, when it did happen, previously in earlier betas, made a lot of uproar, and people weren't happy that they had to remake their house because they couldn't place it anywhere near where they wanted to place it because it was too big of a footprint or other issues that came up with placing houses in general. They increased the weekly donation limit for warbands and introduced a limit on the number of weekly donations in the Evolution's Call scenario. This just allows you to buy more items in more different ways. If you can donate to the warband, it gives you a warband currency where you can make purchases of a few different things, especially controllers, which are very nice. However, it also allowed you to purchase very high-end activators and some food that you wouldn't have to farm out yourself. They also expanded the detection radius of space-time to facilitate exploration. This is what you would do when you press Q on your keyboard and snap your fingers and show the world around you in a little bit more clarity, so you could see where things to pick up, junk items, but also see where chests are in the world. It was a little bit too narrow and people were having trouble seeing chests that were inside one wall in a house, and they passed it up and they couldn't find weapon and gear crates or even the mystic chest if they were hidden. So this is a good change to allow people to find things easier, and if you didn't know, you can use your Q in that fashion to find crates, not only junk items. It's a great little feature. They don't really tell you that in the tutorial. What they mainly say is, oh, you can find hidden objects. The last thing to include in the patch notes as an addition to the game are some shop cosmetic items. We have the Y2K theme pack, we have the Infiltration Vanguard pack, and we have the Brave Gladiator pack as well. We have a new jacket and a new mask. As far as building furniture is concerned, we have the Kitty's Whisper, which includes quite a few cosmetics for building if you want that type of theme. And we also have some new weapon charms. There's one where Mr. Wish is singing his heart out, and another for all your Chephosaurus lovers out in the once human realm. They also extended the maintenance by a couple hours and gave us in 2 mail packages 1,500 Star Crumb, a couple gift packs, and also another free emote, so those are waiting in your mailbox if you have not logged in yet. On to the next part of news. If you weren't paying attention, just a couple days ago, Once Human had a huge crackdown on exploiters through unsavory tactics and third-party hackers/cheaters, ranging from bans of 30 days to 10 years. For the less severe crimes, from what I understand, you would see people having tier 5 gear fully kitted out before the first phase even ended, where no one could get into the zones where you would get those items, to much heavier things of third-party abuse and hacking the game one way or another to give heavily unfair advantages in PvP and otherwise. This list, if you check it out on their news, I'll link it down below where you can find all this, by the way. It's a long scrolling list. It was huge. So this does show that they care about general behavior in the game and keeping a fair place to play the game and not feel like cheaters are going to be running amok and making a terrible time for everyone else. The next topic would be on server player limits and waiting queues. No one likes waiting queues. No one likes having to wait to make a character on a server where their friend is to play with them because none of their friends were on the server that they chose in the first place. The Once Human launch, with how many people were coming in and the influx of new players, meant that there was a lot of servers being made, a lot of people not knowing what server to play on, and now after a week and the hype is finally to a point where people can see who's actually playing, who's continuing to play, and who plans on staying, they want to be on a server where they feel like they can play with friends that are going to be on often or as much as they would be. The reason why they made these limits in the first place is because they realized that when too many players are on the same server, they risked losing server data. This means if there was, for some reason, they had to shut down the server, or there was a lapse in service in general, you might be, an hour behind, 2 hours behind. Who knows how much time you would have lost due to that potential server data loss. Therefore, they made those limits because that was more important for them to deal with than having everyone play with their friends. They are working on ways to fix this, and we'll see how long that takes. The next topic is their updated frequently asked questions that they released on the 13th, just a couple days after the game launched. And this had to do with plenty of things, but I'm just going to skim over the most important topics. One is, when will controller support hit Once Human? And they are stating early August we will see that. I know a lot of people were super bummed out about the fact that they weren't able to play on controllers and they had to deal with mouse and keyboard, especially when they had set up controllers already during the beta and they just wanted an easygoing experience without all the work and hassle of trying to create a custom controller scheme through a secondary program. Continuing with general controllability of the game, Once Human will launch key binding support mid-August after the drop of controller support. So we're getting that as well, and I'm super excited for that because I'd love to shift a couple things up in a way that would allow me to play easier, really. It's really difficult when you're catering your own playstyle to the game and how they force you to control your character, but with a few fixes, everything becomes easier, and I can't wait. Finally, Once Human, on the day after launch, tried their best to explain seasons to players, yet in a text-based format, and not too many people read that. So I just wanted to go over what they explained in that season explanation in their words and a little bit of mine, so that it will be easier for people to understand if you have listened this far and are continuing to do so. What are seasons? In Once Human, each server has a gameplay theme, which is what we call the seasonal scenario. Each scenario offers different seasonal objectives or special gameplay mechanics. We crafted a range of seasonal objectives tailored to different scenarios, each packed with unique mechanics, environments, and content. Different scenarios may take place in different areas of the map, including map areas that have not yet been unlocked, and some scenarios will also feature a completely new storyline experience. As you navigate these scenarios, you have the thrilling choice to collaborate or compete with other players to achieve your seasonal goals. Once a season concludes, you can embrace a new challenge by joining a different scenario or taking on your current one with renewed vigor. After each season, you can sign up for the next scenario. Additionally, be on the lookout for 2 new scenarios launching later this year. 1, a PvE scenario with new survival elements, and 2, a PvP scenario centered around faction confrontations and agency. There were, and still are, quite a few people that have no idea how seasons correlate with Eternalland and how Eternalland connects to all the potential season scenarios that you might entertain in the future on your character. I even, yesterday, was doing Prime Wars with my warband, and they didn't understand, so we had a discussion on that just to help everyone out. It is something that I'd say maybe 5 or 10% of the people in the game actually understand, and everyone else is just saying, I'm going to play the game because it's fun. And we'll see what happens when the season's over, because I'm unsure. However, I am super excited to hear that we have more scenarios being crafted and hopefully ready to go by the time we eat up the current scenarios that they have whipped up for us. I'm sure there's going to be a scenario next season, and also I noticed that different scenarios have different difficulties and locations that are clearly stated in our season info that we can see in our escape menu under the Manibus scenario. The developers are even entertaining an idea about a permanent scenario, so you don't have to worry about switching between different scenarios back and forth, which I'm curious to see how much positivity or negativity that brings. Personally, I enjoy the thought of finishing a scenario and going to explore an entirely new world and pick up the new deviants, potentially new weapon drops that they have there, and once that finishes up, going back and waiting for what I want to do next with my friends to keep busy, or see if maybe we want to switch servers or a different warband as we go forward. There's a lot of cool things that this game allows us to do to mix it up. Say in previous MMOs, if you're playing, say, World of Warcraft, you are on your server and that is it. There are maybe potentials to server transfer, yet you don't get that option a lot. And if your server is not what you want it to be, you only have to wait 6 weeks to be able to change it without any issues. Not only that, but you get to keep everything that you earned in that scenario. Well, mostly everything, but everything important to your character that is a consistent upgrade to your character, you get to keep those outside of leveling and progression through items that you have created. One of my hopes personally with this scenario system is they did mention they have a new PvE and PvP scenario incorporated into their works for future progress in the game. I'd love to see a broader mix of PvE and PvP in general, so maybe if we could do those scenarios both in PvE and PvP, even if the scenario itself is based around PvP confrontations. Maybe, and especially because it's based on factions, it's a PvP/PvE event where we fight against the other faction and maybe other players at the same time. I'm not sure exactly how this works because it's not out yet, but those are my own thoughts being generated about this system. If you have any questions or comments about how scenarios may work, or you want to have clarification, drop comments down below about them, and I'll do my best to try to get answers as best I can so that people aren't left in the dust about these issues. And a very final note, I will make mention that I'm not going to be talking about the whole NetEase privacy policy thing that came up near the very beginning of the game. I think if you read privacy policies in general and understand what they're trying to say and understand different government needs, you'll understand that that privacy policy is not for an American audience or even European audience, but more tailored towards a Chinese audience or even South Korean audience, where you have vastly different rules in place for you to be even able to play games. However, the next topic will be about battle passes and shop cosmetics and if they're supposed to be shareable or not. A lot of people had this question because they found that if they made a new character, all the purchases that they made on the first character they made did not carry over. That is a bug, essentially, and that is one of the reasons why the devs on day one didn't want people to make more than one character and banned that from a option. However, due to a lot of complaints, they opened it up to be more than one character. However, this is one of the drawbacks of that, is they didn't have a system in place for account-wide transitions, and they are working as best and as quick as they can to make that happen. I do not have multiple characters, so I don't know if it is currently done or not, but I would assume near August they should have that done, early August or the 1st of August. It will take a couple weeks usually for a big shift like that without making a mess of other things in most other games, so I'm using that logic to try to figure out a time that they haven't quite given us yet. Ooh, and with that I almost forgot one thing. Lightforged medals and beta rewards have been troublesome for people to get, and I do know that there are still loading bay issues where people have never gotten a code for their items that they earned during the betas yet. However, for Steam players, you can now open the loading bay launcher, log into Once Human. That will require a separate download, unfortunately. Yet if you use the account that earned those medals, you can then link them to your current account that you're playing on Steam through your user ID number that's located at the bottom left of your screen at all times. This will allow people to get more of their earned rewards during the beta, and hopefully make people a little bit less irritated that all that work feels like it went to nothing. Once you're in game on your brand new character, you can hit F3 to get to your events window, and you should see a Lightforged medal transfer event, and from there you can shift things over to your Steam character through its UID. It should be pretty simple, and hopefully people don't have problems. I can see that I might have problems because I completely didn't understand the login methods on Loading Bay, and I ended up having to go through my UID that I took screenshots of to understand if I was on the right account. So hopefully I can use that same logic to do that again. However, I know a lot of people did not save their user ID number during the betas to make a easy transition. I even had trouble going from closed beta test 2 to the third one, and I did not necessarily enjoy Loading Bay, and I just wanted to use Steam for an easier access to the game. And I understood that I might be losing things, but I also understood that hopefully they would fix them soon, and it seems like they are. And with that, that concludes all the patch notes and news that Once Human had to offer up until this point. If you do want to see more information like this be released, let me know. You can do that through general likes and comments, and I will get the picture. If the video does well, I will continue to do these in the future and give a way for the people who aren't reading the news to be able to listen to it in a better fashion. Later.